Let's wrap up the defense, and let's talk about the inside linebacker position in Oregon's base 4-2-5. This is the two, the Mac and the money in the middle of this Oregon defense. And this is a group that I think could have a really high ceiling for its starters this season. But, once you kind of get further on down the depth chart, there are some questions that need to be answered. Let's begin with what is departing from this Oregon inside linebacker room. Of course, you got to start with Jeffrey Bassa. He was the one that started next to Bryce Betcher for a majority of the time last season, an all Big Ten honorable mention, and a fifth-round draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs. Justin Jacobs departs. He runs out of eligibility. It's interesting with Justin. He came in with a decent amount of fanfare. Former four-star guy when he transferred over from Iowa. Injuries kind of held him back, and it didn't really pan out for him. And then Carter Soule as well runs out of eligibility for the Ducks. Now, they just brought in one addition. It is well documented that Oregon is not going into the transfer portal at the inside linebacker position. Their one addition, I know you could probably say Nasir Wyatt, but it seems like that he's going to be more of an edge type of guy going forward. But Gavin Nix, a four-star linebacker out of IMG Academy in Florida, is the one addition to this group. There is a lot of faith from Dan Lanning and Brian Michalowski being put on the guys that are in this room that they can develop and that they can really rise to the occasion, certainly this season. When we talk about storylines centering the inside linebacker group here as we get into fall camp, it's the first one you got to talk about is Bryce Betcher. And he is all in on football this season. Of course, he is a dual sports star, a draft pick of the Houston Astros organization. And, he kind of talked about this a little bit during the spring period of how he's kind of approaching his training a little bit differently, focusing solely on football. He's been able to put 10 pounds on his frame, sitting there around that 230 to 235 type of mark. Bryce out there on center field, after the season, the football season, usually ends. That's when you got to kind of start to get in shape for baseball. Got to be a little bit nimble out there in center field. And look, it could be baseball, it could be basketball, it could be hockey, lacrosse, it could be all of these other sports that anybody really plays. I understand there's no hockey at the University of Oregon, but you get the general idea. Is a lot of different sports require you to kind of be in a different type of shape. So for Bryce to be able to focus since January, getting ready for spring ball, specifically tailoring his training towards football, and then now from spring going into fall camp being just all in on the game of football, I'm just very curious to see how big a dividend that's going to pay off this season, right? Because kind of having to duel back and forth and maybe having your focus split a little bit, have we seen the ceiling of Bryce Betcher? Or with him now hyper-focused and dialed in on football this season, is that going to allow him to go to a different level, or has that peak already been reached? Now, it's a pretty good peak if that's indeed what it is. Second team All Big Ten last year, 94 tackles. He led the team in tackles last year. PFF is grading him as the top returning linebacker in the Big Ten. I believe that he can be certainly a first team All Big Ten player this year. I think he can be an All-American at that linebacker type of position. And we'll kind of get into it as we go through this thing. Like, him coming back in this group was huge. It was huge for him to be able to have one more year of eligibility to be able to finish thing out. Otherwise, Oregon may have had to go into the transfer portal at this position as well. He is the heartbeat of this team. South Eugene kid, Duck fan through and through, and he's been saying in the spring, he said it at media days recently, he's been adamant on what his focus is coming back. I mean, he wants to achieve the ultimate goal. And he's just, that guy, he puts on the eye black. He's got that the collar. I mean, he just looks like an old school Big Ten linebacker, and he's going to be that leader. He's going to be that vocal voice of this defense, knowing his whole childhood, right? going to Duck games and being as big of a fan as he has for a long period of time. These are the stories that you love to hear. And with this 105 roster limit, I don't know how many more of these stories that we are going to see, but Bryce Betcher certainly wants to end it on a great note. He is no doubt going to be the leader of this group. Second point, is Devin Jackson ready to rise to the occasion? Now, before I kind of get into his skill sets and his talents and all of that, Devin Jackson was held out of spring ball due to an undisclosed injury. And then it sounds like he's going to be held at the very least maybe like the first week or so of fall camp, but he's still running over 20 miles an hour. So it sounds like it's good. It does not sound like this is going to be a lingering thing that's going to last kind of through the season. But the health of Devin Jackson, I think, is going to open more opportunities for some of these other guys in fall camp to be able to show certainly what they can do. Devin Jackson had 47 tackles last season. That was 6th on the team. It's the 3rd highest of the returning guys behind only Bryce Betcher and Tatum Tuioti. He played in all 14 games last year, made 1 start. He's very similar to like Amari Washington. Okay, last year on the defensive line, it was Harmon and it was Caldwell up front, and Amari Washington played in every game. He was in that rotation. He was always that next guy. Behind Jeffrey Bassa and Bryce Betcher, that's exactly what Devin Jackson was. And he is just like, considering how big he is, and then when you factor in his athleticism, he is just an absolute freak, right? He might be faster pound for pound than anybody on this team. Like, he is extremely fast, running sideline to sideline. I think he's got all of the physical tools to be an all Big Ten linebacker. I really do. It's up to Devin to be able to put this thing together. And I think Jackson needs to put it together, because if he doesn't, then you're starting to rely on some of this younger, a lot more unproven depth that we talk about right now. And let's get in to that depth that exists within this linebacker room right now. Now, I should trust this depth because the coaching staff trusts the depth. After the spring game, Dan Lanning said, we are not going into the portal to get a linebacker. Brian Michalowski says, I wouldn't be doing my job, of development if we just needed to go into the portal and be able to grab somebody like that. So that really portrays a lot of confidence in what they have in this room. And I think they do have some good to really good players, certainly in this room. I think a guy, when you start talking about the depth, that's often overlooked, because you talk about Bryce Betcher, you talk about Evan Jackson at the top, and then you kind of start to throw in some of these freshmen, these redshirt freshmen that I'll get into a little bit, that a lot of people are also really excited about in recent recruiting classes. But like Jerry Mixon was a 3-star prospect when he came out, but I watch him during the spring game, and he's making really good plays. Jerry Mixon is a junior in this group, and like, he's got experience. He knows what a Tosh Lapoy defense is certainly all about. It would not surprise me to see, at the very least, Jerry maybe be in that Devin Jackson role last year, where he's that guy that's always the next guy in the rotation. And maybe if Devin is out a little bit longer, maybe that gives Jerry Mixon a little bit more of an opportunity to run with the ones besides Bryce Betcher in fall camp and really prove exactly what he can do as well. And then you kind of get down, like, I'm really excited about Braden Platt. I think Braden Platt showed some good things in the spring game as well. Platt is a redshirt freshman, a former 4-star recruit. He was actually the number 53 overall player, according to 24/7, when he came out in the 24 cycle. I mean, 6'2", 235, like, that frame screams inside linebacker. So, like, he's like, out of all of these redshirt freshmen, he's probably the one that I expect to be like in the rotation the most out of all these guys. But certainly don't sleep on Devin Williams. Certainly don't sleep on Kamar Mathuti as well. Each of them only played in 1 game, though, last season. And I mentioned Gavin Nix certainly already. I think that this is a group that, if they're all playing kind of towards their ceiling, then I think that this is a really deep group. Where's my kind of thoughts on the rotation as it sits right now? I certainly think Devin Jackson and Bryce Betcher are going to establish themselves as the starting MAC and the starting money. I think like the significant rotation gets to Jerry Mixon. I think it gets to Braden Platt. And then I think it maybe teeters on how much exactly we're going to see Dylan Williams, how much we're going to see Kamar Mathuti. That I'm a little bit less certain on, but I think that there could certainly be some good players that could certainly step up at the inside linebacker position for the Ducks this season.